Spider-Man, Spider-Man, does whatever a spider can. Spins a web and he says, catches thieves just like those. Look out, here comes Spider-Man. Hey everybody, Koricon here, and this is my review of Spider-Man Homecoming. I got to see it tonight, Thursday night showing at 7 p.m. I was very excited. And this movie was directed by Jon Watts, which I found interesting that they brought in Jon Watts because I know him from doing the movie Clown. He did a short film named Clown. It was a horror, and basically said like a fake trailer that Eli Roth was doing it, and Eli Roth saw it and then produced an actual movie that he directed called Clown. It's a horror movie. Some of you may have heard of it. If not, go look it up. It's pretty interesting, but especially the fake trailer. But I thought it was interesting that they brought him in to do Spider-Man. He doesn't have a lot of movies under his belt, but he's had a few good ones in there, mostly very low budget movies. He must have proven something to them that he could do it, and man, he pulled it. A great movie. I love Spider-Man Homecoming. I think Tom Holland was a great Spider-Man. He was the best Spider-Man so far, which we knew going in that he was going to be good because they set him up in Civil War. Even though I thought his character was kind of dropped into Civil War, and I'm not usually a big fan of characters just being dropped in. He's had a lot of backstory already with previous movies. We know the character, so having him just drop in is not as big of a deal in Civil War, I guess. I'll give it a pass on that. But it gave us something to look forward to for Homecoming, and man, did they do well. The Civil War part that he was in was a very small taste of that character, and they really expanded him into being the perfect Spider-Man. Tom Holland nailed it. But also Michael Keaton. I was actually really surprised with Michael Keaton's Vulture. Marvel has a problem with throwaway villains. The only one that they've really kept around is Loki for the most part, and Vulture is not a throwaway villain, in that he's got a deep backstory. It's very long in building up. Not so much in the movie, but time-wise. They give his character a long arc. And you feel more grounded with him. You understand his motivations, but you're still against him. And I loved him as Vulture. They didn't make him like Ultron or some unbeatable, amazing guy. He was a good villain for Spider-Man, and it worked really well. And Michael Keaton, of course, it's Michael Keaton. He nailed the performance, does a great job. I did find it kind of funny that they brought Batman in, who also did Birdman, to play another bird guy named Vulture. But once the movie started, I was lost into the movie, so the whole Batman Birdman thing didn't really come into play. I just saw him as that character right away. They established it very well in the beginning and just kept going with it throughout the whole movie. The other characters were great. A lot of the side characters did a good job. I really loved his best friend Ned. Ned was awesome. And the humor between Ned and Peter Parker was great. I loved their relationship, their friendship, their banter back and forth was awesome. And it's finally we got a teenage high school Spider-Man. The other movies, although the first two movies, the Sam Raimi movies, were pretty good. And I really liked the second one. I think Dr. Octopus was awesome. I thought Tobey Maguire was too old to play Spider-Man. He looked like he was, you know, a 30-year-old guy playing a teenager, and it just didn't work for me, even though I think he was in his late to mid-20s. But he still looked too old to be a high school Spider-Man. Tom Holland looks like a high school Spider-Man. I mean, in real life, he's only 20. I think he was 20 when he got the part. So he's really close to the age, and he looks the part. and they play it just like a high school, even though a lot of times teenagers tend to annoy me. They didn't go that route. They didn't go full on teenage annoyingness. They just did like a real life what it's like to be in high school. And Peter Parker was in that world. And it worked great. It fit the Spider-Man character that we see in the comic books, that he's got real world problems, he's got relationship problems, he's got to, deal with getting home on time because, Aunt May needs him at home by dark, all that kind of stuff. They grounded him. They finally grounded Spider-Man the way that they should have in the other 5 movies. So this is the best Spider-Man movie by far. I highly recommend seeing it. The action sequences were really good for the most part. There were a couple of scenes where the close-ups were too close up, but they didn't edit too quick. So that was good. A lot of the edits were longer edits so you could see what was going on in frame, but some of the close-ups were too close and made the action hard to follow, but only for a couple of scenes. The other bigger scenes, the camera was pulled back, you got to see the scope, and that was great. Another thing I was worried about going in was the trailers were showing that Tony Stark was in the trailers a lot, that there was going to be a lot of Iron Man, and they didn't do that, thank goodness. I did not want this to be a an Iron Man movie that just had Spider-Man in it. And they did not do that. Tony Stark is in it just enough, but not too much. And it's really a Spider-Man movie. And it's a self-contained story. There's a problem with some comic book movies and other superhero movies, or any movies where they're trying to establish or are in a universe, that they're spending so much time trying to set up a sequel that they miss the story that they're trying to tell in this movie. And they didn't do that. They kept it a self-contained storyline. Now, there are little things in there that if you know what you're looking for, you can see them as being dropped in there as a little hint of what is to come. But they're not glaring and like throwing it in your face. It's only there for people that are in the know. And when you see a sequel, if they utilize those, then it would come up. But it's not like they're trying to say, this is what's going to happen in the sequel. It's more of like, if it happens in the sequel, you're like, oh, I remember that from Homecoming. So that was good. Kept it a self-contained storyline. Had a nice arc. The whole thing was smooth. It didn't feel like the length that it was. I think it was 2 hours and 15 minutes. It did not feel like it. And whenever a movie doesn't feel like it's that long, it means it's doing well. If you have a short movie that feels really long, then it's not very good. Now, the one thing that I do have to say is when the credits came, they had an end credit scene right after the major out credit, the nice, pretty one. And that one was good. I liked that. And then they had one at the end of the credits, like all Marvel movies do, which I really like the end credit scenes. I like that Marvel does that. It's a good way of throwing something in there that, hey, you might see this without it ruining the movie. It's more of just a little add-on, and I enjoy those. But I had to go to the bathroom bad. And all I could think of was, oh my gosh, there's so many people that worked on this movie. But when we got to the end credit scene, you'd have to see it. But it did make me laugh. So I would highly suggest watching it. I'm really happy with some of the movies this summer. Last summer was not very good. And this summer we got Wonder Woman and Spider-Man. We got an awesome DC movie and an awesome Marvel movie so far. I'm really happy. Super happy. I liked Spider-Man Homecoming more than I thought I would. I knew I would probably like it just because of how well they played him in Civil War, and just from what I've seen from the trailers, I knew I would most likely like the movie unless they did something to truly ruin it. But knowing Marvel, I don't think they would have done that. But I liked it more than I thought I would, which is saying something. So I'm going to give this movie a grade of an A. So that's my second grade of an A for a comic book movie this year, Wonder Woman and Spider-Man. I don't know if Thor Ragnarok will be able to get an A, but man, Spider-Man Homecoming, I highly suggest seeing it. It was a fun time, and that's kind of rare these days. It was a really fun time in the theater, and I enjoyed it a lot. I want to see it again. But tell me what you guys think. Did you see Spider-Man? Comment below and let me know your thoughts on the movie. What did you like? What did you not like? What are your thoughts? If you're on VidMe, upvote this, give me a follow and share it around. If you're on YouTube, like, share, subscribe. Tell your friends! And I will see you on the next video.